Hi, and welcome to DynaScape Creator. Thanks for joining us today for this webinar. As we go along, please feel free to post your questions in the chat. To get started, go to draw.dynascape.com. Once you've logged in, the first thing you'll see is the homepage. To create your first drawing, click New. Next, give your drawing a name and choose your paper format settings. Today, we're going to work in a drawing in imperial units on a letter-sized page and landscape orientation. You can change the settings in your drawing at any time by clicking on the D menu, then navigating to Drawing Properties. If you're following along and this is your first time logging into Creator, you'll see some introductory content pop up as well. Typically, we'd recommend you check it out, but since you've got me here, we can skip all that today. Our landscape design today is based on a front yard, and we have an image with the building's exterior wall measurements to work from. You might be working off a sketch like I am. You might also have your own site survey or architectural drawing, and that would work just fine as well. If you'd prefer to follow along using our example, you can download this from the link provided in the chat. Let's go back to Creator. First, open Insert Image, then import the image to the site plan layer. Once I've selected the image to upload, I can click twice to drop it in. Now we've got our image on the page, but it's not sized accurately yet. Let's open Scale Image and ensure that our reference is accurate. While I'm doing this, it's best practice to use one of the larger dimensions on the image, as this minimizes any margin of error in the scaling process. I'll use the 30-foot dimension on the side. You'll notice that I'm zooming in and navigating around as I do this. You can easily navigate by scrolling to change your zoom level and pressing in on your mouse wheel to pan around. Now I'll go ahead and type 30 into the sidebar. Then I'll select the image, then click on these 2 points. Once I click the second point, the image immediately is resized, and now it's accurately scaled relative to the rest of our page. Select the image and use the quick move grip in the center to place it within the page limits. You can also have used the move mode on the top left-hand corner, but we'll get into all that later. Now I'm going to rotate the image so that the building is square to the page. I could use the angle control in the sidebar to do this, but instead I'm going to use the rotate mode here. Click on my center of rotation, click a second time, and now as I move my cursor, you'll see that it snaps to the horizontal, which is really helpful. I could turn the snapping behavior off in the navigation bar if I so wanted, but let's leave that on for now. I'll adjust the position just a little bit more, and once I'm happy with the position, I'll click on the Confirm button in the sidebar. Now that we have accurately scaled reference, we can trace the exterior of the wall on the base layer. This can be done using the Line tool, which creates single line segments. If I do this, I'll be sure to change my layer first, and I can go ahead and start clicking. However, when I'm outlining the building, I prefer to use the Polyline tool, which creates a single entity of joined segments. So I'm going to exit the tool, and I'll quickly select and delete those lines. Then I'll switch to the Polyline tool and I'll start outlining again. And while I'm doing this, I can also set precise lengths using the Tab key. Now, if I make a mistake like I just did, I don't need to redraw the entire polyline from scratch. I can just press the Z key, undoes that last point, and I can just pick up where I left off. And now I'm going to go ahead and enclose that polyline. Once we're happy with the placement, we can lock our site plan using the layer manager so we don't accidentally move the reference around. I'll open my layer manager, navigate to site plan, and click the little lock icon. While I'm here, I'll also just temporarily turn off the visibility for that drawing. Now, it's often useful to have a thicker line to represent a wall, but I want to keep this exterior line where it is for accurate snapping and measurements as I lay out the design for the rest of the front yard. Since I've used the Polyline tool to outline the building as a single connected entity, I can offset the entire outline at once. Open the offset tool, select the building line, and now we can go ahead and offset the exterior line 6 inches to the inside to represent the full width of the wall. I can use the inch notation or type 0.5 feet. Next, I'll offset another line 3 inches to fill it in. We want this middle line to be a little bit thicker. Just select a new line and edit the thickness to suit the look I'm going for. I can do this under Style and changing the line weight. While I'm here, I'll also put this on the building layer, and if I don't like that color, I can change the color as well. I'll make it pink. Now we have the stick line representing wall and the baseline representing the outside of the building, which you can snap to when needed. The next set of measurements we have is for the driveway. We're going to need to unhide our reference image for this, so let's go back to the layer manager and turn on the site plan again. First, we'll go ahead and add the driveway. We can use the line segment tool for this. I'll make sure I'm drawing on the correct layer. Then I'll select the corner of that house and draw a vertical line down to meet the road. Now I'll select and copy this line to represent the width of the driveway. You can do this under Edit in the D menu, click and copy, and paste. But if you want to do that more quickly in the future, press Ctrl C and then Ctrl V. Here we can use the feet and inch notation. I'll set the driveway to be 13 feet and 6 inches. Next, we'll add a line for the curb and extend that across the length of the property. Again, we can copy and paste this, and this time I will use Ctrl C to copy and Ctrl V to paste. And we'll make that 3 feet wide. And while I'm here, I'm also going to quickly trace that front step at the entrance as well. I'll turn Auto Snap on in the line tool for this. That's around 6 feet, it looks like. Then let's turn that site plan off again. Oh, and don't forget to save your progress. It's a good idea to get into the habit of doing this every few minutes. Next, let's take the trim tool and trim the parts where the sidewalk is cutting through the driveway. Now let's make a little walkway with the Polyline tool. Let me just switch to the walk layer. And I'm going to draw a walkway running from the front of the house to the driveway. While I'm doing this, I can switch between straight and curved segments using the W, A, and S keys. So for example, if I wanted to curve this here, I can hit S, and that immediately starts curving. And then here I'll hit W and switch back to a straight segment. If this is a new walkway that's part of our design proposal, we can add a hatch from one of many industry standard patterns. Open the hatch tool, then use the selection mode to pick the walkway we just drew. We don't want a solid fill, so let's choose an appropriate pattern from one of the available categories. I like that flagstone, but let's make sure to put that on the appropriate layer. As a side note, the reason I'm being careful about the layers I use in each tool is that our layer system is designed to include preset line weight. And proper line weights make the design easier to understand by adding depth and character to the drawing, which helps to visually communicate the dimensionality of the space. Typically things like hatch patterns are represented by thin lines, and thicker lines are used for more prominent objects like buildings, structures, and trees. So when I'm taking advantage of Creator's layers, that just means I don't need to modify the line weights for each individual entity or hatch I'm making. Anyway, let's add a label to what we just drew. Select the walkway outline, and we can see the area under calculated properties. Now that we know the area, we can add a leader with a label for the flagstone. One cool thing is that I can copy this and then paste this directly into the leader tool. And I'll just make sure to round it up. Next, we'll work on a deck. We'll put the deck in the back of the house. Open a rectangle, click in a corner, and press Tab to set the values as needed. I also want to add a couple steps off the back of the deck. I'll use the Polyline tool for this. Switch my layers. And you'll see if I'm still in the smooth mode, then I'm not going to get my tab to enter values. So let's switch back to straight. And then I can add my values in. I'll copy a couple of these steps over. Control C, Control V. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to snap them into place with the move mode. Oh, and as a side note, if I don't want to have to go to the top corner and click move every time, I can just press M. Now, I don't think I really like having the steps in this corner. I think I'd rather have them facing the south side. So I'm going to group select this, and I'll rotate them. And once again, I'll just snap that into place. To build the deck, we need to add some dimensions. So let's go to the dimension tool, change the layer, and I'll add a couple of dimensions to the deck and the steps. Next, I want to add a plant bed to my landscape design. I'll use the Polyline tool with smooth turned on for this. Again, remember to set your layers, and if you make a mistake, you can always press Z to back up instead of having to start over. I can also edit the polyline after the fact to get it a little closer to how I want it looking, so I'm just going to do that for a little while here. And while I do this, note that I can use these tangent snap cues in order to preserve that smooth aspect of the polyline, so that's really helpful. Again, let's label this. Select the polyline to see the linear length of the edging. Then I can create a label out of this. Now we're going to drop in some plants from the Insert Figure tool to fill out the plant bed. Open the Insert Figure tool, and we'll add two different kinds of shrubs to start with. Change categories, and then go ahead and pick some shrubs that you think you like the look of. Now as I'm doing this, I can double click to place a figure immediately, or click and rotate the figure to add some variation for a more natural look. Oh, and don't worry about layers for this step. You'll see that all figures have the correct layers automatically included. I'm going to go ahead and add a tree just for good measure. It's a little bit too big. That works. I think I'll copy and paste one more as well. All right, now I think the next thing I want to do is to add a hedge on this side of the driveway. Let's go back to the insert figure tool and we'll find a little boxwood that we can add. And now I want a line of these running down the length of the driveway, but I don't really want to create each of these by hand, so I'm going to use the duplicate tool to quickly create a line of figures along that direction. So let's open this tool, and this is all about creating many copies at once. First, select the reference figure, then click on that little duplicate along direction icon, and your second click is going to set your spacing. And all I need to do now is move my cursor along that direction and click one more time. Great. We can now label these plants from the Softscape Labeling tool, and our tool connects to DynaScape's online plant database of over 7,000 plants with common and botanical names. Let's open up the tool. We'll search, and let's say I want to add some hostas. Don't forget to set your quantity. Today I'm going to use common name rather than botanical name. And I'm going to go ahead and label the other shrub as well. And finally, let's label that tree. Now we can label a hedge, but I don't really want to count all these manually. So let's quickly switch to the figure count tool and check how many we have. It looks like there's 11 of these here, but I'm going to click on this row in the sidebar just to make sure that it's these figures that are being highlighted in the drawing. And they are. So let's switch back to the Softscape Labeling tool, and now that we know that it's 11 of these, we can type that in and proceed to label these boxwoods. And finally, I'm going to export this list of materials. Click on the Export Data tool, and then we can export these plants, areas, and linear measurement labels to a CSV file. Make sure to check off everything that you want included in the document. Click on Export. And now we have a CSV list of materials that we could include in a quote. Again, don't forget to save your progress as you work. Now, let's add the final touches. I'm going to make sure everything fits nicely within the page limits. And if we even needed to, we could change the page size and scale in the drawing properties. I'm not going to do that for now. But let's just move some of these labels around. And one other thing you could do, if you so wanted, would be to actually change the formatting of this in the text box. So let's say I don't really want to move this around. I can also press enter here, and that would be another way to fit it in. So that's really up to your own personal taste. These dimensions are outside the page. I could try to squeeze those in, but I'd rather turn them off for now. And since we know that's 19 by 15 feet, I can go ahead and add a label to that. So I'm gonna label the dimensions of the deck, the residence, and the driveway. Finally, I want to put a logo in the corner, so again, I'll import an image. I've got a nice logo here. Put that in the corner. Oh, and I'll make sure to put that on the title block layer. Save, and we're done. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is how to export this to a PDF. Head back to the home page. Click the little options here, open up exports, and under PDF I'm going to select monochrome. And there we have it. We've completed our first landscape design in Creator. I hope you found this valuable, and if you've had a question that wasn't covered, please feel free to send your questions to DynaScape support and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks very much for attending and have a great rest of your day.